Southeast Asia's Info Wars. The Embrace of the Motherland. China's propagandists take aim at Southeast Asia's Chinese diaspora.
Every night, Lee Ah Huat, not his real name, turns on the news. The 60-something engineer lives in Malaysia's capital, Kuala Lumpur, but he does not bother with local channels. He goes straight to CCTV, China's state broadcaster, and usually watches its international broadcast in Chinese. Mr. Lee's family left China and settled in Malaysia decades ago. He maintains few direct connections to his ancestral home and has complicated feelings about it. Yet when it comes to current affairs, his views are straightforward. The protests in Hong Kong and the oppression of the Uyghurs, an ethnic minority, are China's domestic issues. American politicians who bang on about the Chinese state's human rights abuses are, in this view, hypocrites. Just look at how America treats African Americans or Native Americans. They murdered them, stole their land. America is just causing trouble. Mr. Lee's remarks would delight the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. At least 30 million members of the Chinese diaspora, 60 to 70% of the total, live in Southeast Asia. They are the targets of increasingly sophisticated Chinese state-sponsored influence operations. Though few members of the diaspora are Chinese citizens, the state expects them to have strong sympathies with their ancestral homeland. They have an important role to play in what the party calls China's Great Rejuvenation. In 2018, the United Front Work Department, the main organ responsible for influence operations among people who are not party members, absorbed the Overseas Chinese Affairs Office, responsible for tending to those abroad. Jacob Wallace of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, a think tank, thinks that the CCP sees the diaspora as a powerful vector of influence and is trying to recruit its members. The Southeast Asian diaspora is of particular interest to China's info warriors because China thinks it has a natural right to primacy in the region, says Kenton Thibault of the Atlantic Council, an American think tank. China sees it as an easy proving ground, she adds, where it can start to express itself as a global power. How to recruit these potential partisans? Wherever the readers are, wherever the viewers are, that is where propaganda reports must extend their tentacles, said Xi Jinping, China's president, in 2015. Their grip can be felt almost everywhere. Over the past decade, top CCP officials have overseen a dramatic expansion in efforts to shape media content and narratives around the world, according to a report in 2020 by Freedom House, a watchdog. This push feels particularly strong in Southeast Asia because there are more outlets that are willing to rebroadcast some of these claims, says Jia Ian Chong of the National University of Singapore. Prominent state media like CCTV are broadcast in every Southeast Asian country. Some, including Xinhua, a government news agency, have struck attractive content-sharing deals with cash-strapped local newspapers, wire services and television broadcasters in Vietnam, Laos and Thailand. In 2017, a Chinese firm and the Cambodian Interior Ministry launched a TV station which carries content from China's official media. The complexion of some local media is increasingly red. Cambodian media now carry journalism with Chinese characteristics, according to Reporters Without Borders, another watchdog. Chinese language outlets in Malaysia are muzzling journalists who do not toe the CCP line. In April, Lian He Zhao Bao, a Chinese-language Singaporean newspaper, renamed its Greater China section, covering China, Hong Kong and Taiwan, simply China, reflecting China's claim that Taiwan is its territory. It is one of the few foreign newspapers which are allowed to circulate in China. China also spreads disinformation. A recent investigation by Malaysia Kini, a news website, found that during the mass unrest in Hong Kong in 2019, mainstream Chinese-language media in Malaysia regurgitated false reports from Chinese state media claiming that protesters threw Molotov cocktails at school buses. China manipulates digital outlets too. Its lies often pop up on social media platforms in Taiwan, which is a testing ground for the PRC's worldwide propaganda, according to Double Think Lab, a local outfit that tracks digital information operations. From there, it spreads to Southeast Asia, piggybacking on the Twitter, Facebook and WeChat accounts of Southeast Asian migrants in Taiwan or ethnic Chinese in Southeast Asia. Chinese propagandists have a few favorite themes. They include China's benevolence, as illustrated by its donations of vaccines to Southeast Asian countries, true, and the invention of the first COVID-19 vaccine by a Chinese general, false. Democracy is portrayed as a messy, chaotic form of government and America as a racist country. A video purporting to depict black and white Americans beating a Chinese man with sticks was shared widely on Southeast Asian chat groups earlier this year. The caption was false. The video actually depicted a prison riot in Ecuador. There is also evidence that the Chinese propaganda apparatus, which has become much more sophisticated, multi-layered and international-facing in the past 2 years, is conducting digital operations intended to manipulate public opinion in Southeast Asia about domestic politics, says Mr. Wallace. It is hard to establish whether China is winning hearts and minds with such tactics. A Pew poll conducted this year found that in Singapore, which is about 3/4 Chinese, nearly 2/3 of respondents did have favorable views of China. Older Singaporeans were more likely than youngsters to hold such views. Last year, a Singaporean woman posted on Reddit, an online forum, about her father who was self-radicalizing every night with extreme pro-China videos. Scores of Singaporean users recounted similar experiences with their own parents. Sometimes influence operations backfire, however. In 2015, the perception that China was interfering in Malaysia's affairs led tens of thousands of Malays to march through Chinatown in Kuala Lumpur, stirring memories of past race riots. And if Mr. Lee, the Malaysian engineer, is anything to go by, the party still has work to do. Lofty rhetoric about the Chinese diaspora belonging to a community of common destiny is all well and good, but his mainland Chinese colleagues look down on us. They think we come from a small, poor and weak country, he adds. They don't see us as one of them. Nor does Mr. Lee. He identifies not as a Chinese national, but as Chinese Malaysian.